Greetings and welcome back to CS133 Practical Programming with Python. This is week 2. We're going over loops and logic. First lesson is going to be on logic. Our goal for this lesson is to understand the basic concept of logic and programming, the true, false, and the standard if statement. Our success criteria is you'll be able to demonstrate an if statement to evaluate a Boolean expression. So there's two things we need to look at here that we're going to go over is Boolean and an if statement. And luckily we are very good at making decisions already. It's what we do. If this is the thing, let's do this, right? If it's raining, we're going to put on a hat, right? We do it automatically. So the computer needs a way to do this as well, to evaluate what it's going to do. And this really gives the computer power to mimic thinking, essentially, as you're going through doing all of your stuff. And now that we can take user input from our last week, we can give, if the user says this, then do this, right? We can add a little bit of logic to it. So the first thing is Boolean. We talked about types of variables. The two biggest ones you're going to see, as we mentioned, are strings and integers, right? Characters, strings of characters, and integers are numbers. Well, Boolean is a lot simpler. All it is true or false, and exactly like I have written here. Capital T, no quotes. If you put quotes around it, it makes it a string. Same thing down here. And again, notice that capital first letter. If you don't capitalize it, it doesn't work. So this is Boolean. Now, again, you can, set a variable to Boolean, and then it's going to hold either true or false, and that's all it can hold if it's Boolean, just true or false. Or you can just evaluate something to Boolean, right? 1 is less than 2. That can evaluate to true, right? 2 is less than 1. That will evaluate to false. So that is the concept of Boolean, is just simply true or false. The next piece is the if statement. And this is where you actually add the logic to it. So if you remember, I said is happy is true. In this if statement, if the statement is true, it executes this code. That's all there is to it. Now, the syntax is if whatever you are evaluating, in this case you're just evaluating this variable, which would be true, and then notice that there's a colon here, right? That is the if statement, how you create the initial if statement. Then, and many programs do this different ways, but computers are not smart. We mentioned this many times before. You need to be able to tell the computer what code is executed with the if statement. And in Python, you do that by just add indentation. So whatever is indented is inside of the if statement. Right? That is the concept of that. Whatever is indented is inside that if statement. I.e., if this is true, whatever is indented will be executed. Let's kind of look at this from code standpoint. So, if true, again, notice the T is capital. If true, then we're going to print this. Notice it's indented. So it's true, so therefore it is indented. Now I'm going to not indent something and print it. Alright, so this is outside. So I run it, it's outside. Now, from this example, you can't quite tell that it's outside. However, if I make this false, right, this will not execute. And if this was inside of it, it would not execute either. So when I run this, this does not execute, but this is not inside. Now again, if I indent it and change the word to inside, run it, nothing happens. I move it to true, and now both of them print. All right, so this is the basic syntax of a true statement. So we're really just worrying about Boolean for now, true or false. Next lesson we'll get into more things you can evaluate, but for now we're just saying, if it's true, it executes it. If it's false, it doesn't execute the code. That's the point of this lesson, is understanding true and false. So let's look at it if we actually use a variable for this. Right? If is happy, we set is happy to true. Notice that breaks it. It has to be a capital T, set to happy. So this is essentially the same as saying if true, right? Basically saying the thing. So we run it, and then it plays the clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth, right? So that's the if statement. If this is false, if you're not happy and you run it, you don't get the song. That's the basics of logic, right? You have your Boolean, true and false, and and there's other ways to evaluate if true and false, as I mentioned. 1 is less than 2. And then your if statement. If whatever you're evaluating, and notice I put parentheses here just so you can kind of see it. You don't necessarily need parentheses in Python. But colon, you do need a colon, and then you do need to indent anything that's inside of it. So that's the end of the logic lesson. We'll go over more details on this next lesson.